Okay, testing. You guys tell me if you can actually hear me. As you can see, I'm making this up as I go along. Everything is... yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Hopefully you guys can hear me. But I'm so glad Napster's is here. You guys let me know if the... awesome. Thank you very much for that. Hopefully my lips are flapping. Audio's... I don't believe anything Napster says. He's a liar. A liar and a cheat. Yeah, streaming on YouTube is much harder than Twitch. It's a pain. It's a huge pain. I gotta listen. All right. Yeah, you have to like bounce back and forth and hit and I haven't done it on YouTube in quite some time, so I'm playing catch up. And I just said, you know, wing it, just go live. So here we are. Appreciate you guys hanging in there and testing it out for me. If you were to restart your career, would you still go Army or another branch? For all my complaints of the Army, I liked the Army. So I liked the work. I liked the job. I think most pilots probably wish they could have flown something else just for the experience, but I don't think that I regret anything, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, would I love to go fly jets, or would I love to go? Yeah, sure, of course, I'd love to do all those things. So it's not so much a regret of not doing one or the other, but there's only you only got the one life to live. So lips are flapping confirmed. Well, thank you for that. They do on occasion flap. Total spoon, thank you. If you could choose your gender, what would it be? I don't know. Desk fan. Just the first thing I could see. What was your favorite thing about the Apache? Air conditioning. Absolutely, 100% air conditioning. Flying the Kiowa, there was no air conditioning. We usually have the doors off, so you'd get some air. But yeah, once I got in the Apache in air conditioning, it was legit. Is that a transformer model in the background? Yeah, well, yeah, that's the box. He's actually in a case over there, all put together. But yeah, I liked the box. Starscream is my favorite transformer. I don't know why. He's devious and terrible, but he was my favorite. I also have they started doing like these retro game or toys figures, and I have one of Soundwave that I got at Walmart. It looks like the kind when I was a kid, so I bought that. And I got a G.I. Joe Cobra Fang, the little helicopter, the little stupid like gyrocopter with a gun on it. So I have that still in the box. I don't know why. Impulse buy. That's the beauty of when you get a little bit older and you have some disposable income. You just see crap like that and you're just like, oh, I want that. What are you gonna do with it? Doesn't matter. I'm not gonna do anything with it. It's gonna sit on my counter. So I've got all kinds of stupid stuff like that. Yeah, the Soundwave's legit. Soundwave was also one of my favorites. I don't know why I gravitate toward the Decepticons. Do I have a problem with Authority? Well, there's probably one or two bosses that would have said that, yes, I did not get along with Authority. What was your favorite memory from flying in the Army? Not getting shot. That was not my favorite memory. I don't know if I have one particular. I think what I liked was the camaraderie of it all. Like, you know, going out with, what was that? That was a weird sound. If you're going out with like you know, like a flight of 2, or even like I did a couple large flights, like flight of 6 or flight of 10. I don't know. It's just something cool about like going out on a flight line. You got all your crap, you know, and you're heading out and everybody's getting comm checks and you're taxiing out and stuff like that. I don't know why, but that's kind of neat. I miss that. because you don't do that in the airlines, you know. I guess you could pretend that you're in formation because there's all these, you know, big jets lining up. But anyway, just got the F-15 a couple hours ago, binge watching. Yeah, well, hopefully those help. I'm still learning myself. You know, the module that we got sent was still kind of in development. I know some people were mad that like content creators had stuff, but I'm telling you, you didn't want the one that we had. It just, there were some issues with it still, and they were still working through some things. So some of the things that I learned aren't necessarily correct. So I'm trying to do my best. I mean, I made most of those videos weeks ago. So people ask me like, well, what'd you do? I was like, I don't remember. You know, it was early June. Anyway, ever work with the UK Army Air Corps? No, I never did. I never worked with any other flying, like another country's air. I worked with ground. I worked with the Australian SAS. In fact, I'm still friends with some of those guys. Those were cool dudes. We worked a little bit with Dutch Special Forces. That's about it that I can think of off the top of my head. Did you ever work a flight? Yeah, so I worked with the Aussies, like I said. I've actually worked quite a bit with Aussies. We spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. At Tarin Kowt is where I was at when that was primarily an Aussie base. And so I made some friends there. And then I left that job and then went to Fort Benning. I guess they changed the name of it to whatever it is now. But I was teaching there for like 3 years, and we had an Australian exchange officer that would come. And so I made friends with, you know, those guys coming through. They're good dudes. I'd love to go to Australia. I've never been. I'd like to. They are unhinged. Clipping on the high end. Yeah, I'm sure that there's some audio that can be adjusted. Here, let me turn this down. This is not my normal. Let's see if this helps a little bit. I'm gonna turn this down some. This is not my normal streaming computer, so there's probably some things that are gonna be messed up. Gatto's going. Yep, that's right. Fort Moore. Okay, good. That's good. There's a lot of good names. There's a lot of, yeah. I don't know if we should go down that road. There's a lot of hurt feelings. I'm not one of them. I'm fine with it. I think it's great, but yeah, it is what it is. Let's see. Sorry, I know a lot of you are asking things, and I'm trying to keep caught up here. How would you go about saving fuel in a helicopter? Flying higher is not the answer, typically. It's just probably going slower. That's really what it boils down to. Just going slower. How are you so incredibly handsome? Well, you know, clean living, working out at least once a week, chocolate cake, and beer or two every night, 100%. Wow, thank you for that. If you could bring any aircraft into DCS, which one? We were talking about this the other day. I've loved the Strike Eagle since I was a kid, so super excited to have that there. But we'll count that one out. If I had to bring one in, probably, and I mean they're already doing the Corsair. Maybe the P-38. That would be cool. I really hope DCS gets a little bit more into World War II and dives into that. We need a Pacific theater. We need Zeros. We need like the nostalgia that comes with the Strike Eagle in DCS is massive. Now go the other way and like Aces of the Pacific, which I grew up on. Oh, tremendous. I would be super into that. The whole channel would change. Where do you get your haircut? I don't even want to tell you. You laugh at me. Any info on transitioning from Army helicopter to airlines? Is this common? Oh, it's huge. It's massively common right now. It's incredibly common. Not so much 10 years ago, but massively common. The airlines have finally figured out that helicopter pilots actually can fly fixed-wing aircraft and actually do pretty well at it. It's not a hard transition at all. Okay, I went from flying helicopters and little Cessnas for my training to a 737, and it took a month, and that was like 2 weeks of ground school. Actually, I'll take that back. That was 1 week of ground school because one of those weeks was just like company stuff, had nothing to do with jets. So 1 week of ground, and then I think 10 simulator periods. it's not hard. Easiest job I ever had, and I worked at a KFC, so sorry. What about the worst part of the Apache? Having to tell people that you're an Apache pilot is probably the worst part. I don't know that there was a worst part. I mean, people always ask me which one did I like better? I don't know, which kid do you like better? Like you love them both for different reasons. So, thoughts on the state of the Strike Eagle early access? I think it's in a better shape than it was when I got the preview. And I think it's fun. I think it's got enough meat on the bone to be entertaining. I know people want JDAMs and Mavericks and stuff, and we're gonna get it hopefully soon. Hopefully it's not like a year down the road. But anyway. Black Sheep Squadron stuff, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be all into that. Did you ever fly the Apache in bad weather? I don't think so. I didn't fly the Apache that much. I only got a couple hundred hours in it. I flew probably about 2,000 hours in the Kiowa, but the Apache not too long. So I don't remember any like harsh weather. We typically avoided it for helicopters, just because, especially in the Kiowa, because it was not instrument rated, so you couldn't do that. What is your true opinion about DCS World? Like, is it a game or a simulator? I think it's a fun video game that you can treat as a simulator, that I don't necessarily treat as a simulator. Sometimes. Simulator is a state of mind. That's what it is. DCS, I enjoy. I mean, I've played DCS since. I think when I got out of flight school in 2004 is when I got a copy of, what was it called, LOMAC, Lock On Modern Air Combat, which is kind of the precursor to stuff. So that's when I started playing that. And then I stopped for a long while because I was busy. And then kind of got back into it, I don't know, 8 years ago or so, a little bit. So, and then I guess I started my channel because I saw like Mover, and I saw, Fighter Pilot Podcast. I saw all these people, and I was like, well, where's the helicopter voice? And I don't necessarily want it to be me, but that's why I did my channel. So, how's the application going? You talking for American? It's in. I'm just waiting. I just update it every month with my hours, and then there's nothing else I can do. Just wait. Were you in the Kiowa or the Apache at Terran Count? Kiowa. I was a troop commander there. In fact, this unit here, which you can't really see, but Alpha 117 Cav. Something that surprised me is how quickly you could transition from rotary to fixed wing. Yeah, it's super easy. I started. I'll summarize it. It basically took 5 months of training, and I flew like almost every day. I went to a school that luckily the GI Bill paid for, and then I flew Cessnas, and then I flew a little bit of Seminoles twin engines, just so I can get the multi-engine time, because you need like 25 hours of multi-engine. That's it. And then you needed 250 PIC hours in a fixed wing. So I got that in about 5 months. And before I even finished that, I had the job offer from the company I'm at now. And then and I was doing all this training while I was in the Army. Like, I had basically took a sabbatical of leave. And then I retired from the Army at the end of February 2021. And then April 15th is when I started with my company. And before that, I was doing nothing, just sitting around. So, sorry, you guys are fast. I'm trying to keep up. Do you ever wish the Comanche had been produced? Oh, sure. I'd love to have flown the Comanche. I mean, I was being told I was going to fly the Comanche. In flight school, they were like, "Oh, you picked Kiowas, but you'll be back here in 2 or 3 years, to fly the Comanche." And then like 3 months later, it got canceled. So that was back in early 2004. So, what is the best helicopter for DCS for a reasonably competent pilot? I mean, the Huey's gotten better from a flight model standpoint. If you're trying to learn helicopters, the Huey's good. I used to not think it was all that great. Apache's good. You just have to understand the trim, and they're still kind of dialing stuff in. So, the second ACR had Apaches. Did you fly second ACR Polk or anywhere else? No, I flew Kiowas completely at Bragg at the 82nd. I did 2 tours there and did 2 deployments from there, and then I flew Apaches at Fort Hood in the 1st Cav Division, and then I did 1 short deployment from there to Iraq. Let's see. Evening, Cody. Did you ever play Jane's Longbow? Absolutely. Just a ton. Yeah, used to play that religiously. That and what was that other one? Gunship 2000. I think that's right. Gunship 2000. I think it was a Microprose game. It was really good. Good for the time. It was garbage now. But yeah. Any other helicopters you'd like to have flown if given a chance? Not really, because I was a gun guy. Like, I liked the guns and the scouting, like carrying stuff, like just not exciting to me. I think it'd be cool to fly like a MH-53 just because they're really big. But it's not like I'd want it like to be my career. So, hang on a second. I swear I heard someone say my name. Anyway. Do you have any insight on the Kiowa model? Yeah, I have it. I'm on the, testing or whatever. I might be live streaming it soon. I'm not sure yet. So we'll see. I have Gunship. It is still on my Steam list in GOG. Oh, nice. Yeah, I don't know that I could ever go back to play that, though. How would you employ the Kiowa in DCS? Very carefully. Very carefully. The threat in DCS is intense. The power, if you will, of the Kiowa will be sitting back, using a mass mounted sight, popping up over top of things and looking at stuff and lasing things. That's it. But diving in with rockets and stuff in the DCS environment, probably not so much. Yeah, Jane's Longbow, Comanche Goal. I never played the Comanche Goal. I never liked to play games of aircraft that didn't really exist. Like, I couldn't get into that. Could you make one thing clear for me? Why, in reality, is the CPG firing the rockets when I play games I find it possible to aim and fire? Well, no, either one can fire. It just depends on the scenario that you're in. You have to remember that the Apache was designed... I wish I had like a little model. The Apache was designed... Here, this will be an Apache. To hover for the most part, right? And then the pods will articulate. Because, like in the Kiowa, you could shoot rockets from a hover, but you would have to elevate the nose because the rockets were fixed, right? So you'd have to do this to get range. With the Apache, the pods articulate, and so they do that on their own based on the range. But you can only really effectively do that with the front seater lasing, and then the back seater's still the one shooting. So, did you ever fly the Cobra? No, they got rid of the Cobras long before I came in. I can't remember what year, but I want to say the mid-90s at least. Thanks for the Eagle tutorials. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I flew with Natso, the SME, a couple days ago, Saturday. So I'm gonna post that. I gotta chop it up a little bit, and then I'll probably post just the startup as well for people that are interested. But I mean, he kind of talks through like why you're doing the things that you're doing. So I thought it was interesting. H64 A10. That's not fair, because I'd love to fly an A10. To be awesome, of course, but at the same time, I don't regret flying the Apache. What was I gonna say? I always get asked that question or something like it. Essentially, what I say is good pilots, at least all the good pilots I know, like understand you don't pick the aircraft, you pick the mission. So what is it that you want to do, and then you gravitate towards the aircraft that does that mission. If you just say, well, I just want to fly F-16s, or I want to fly Blackhawks, well, why? And you may be surprised to learn that what you think they do, they don't actually do, or something like that. So you should always pick the mission. So, do you prefer the Kiowas MMS or the Apaches? Oh, the Apache's 1,000 times better. It's so much better. It's not fair because the Apaches used to be garbage, but kind of when the Comanche went away, they took that money and upgraded the Apache, and that's how the Apache got such good stuff. And then the Kiowa, they kind of like decided, screw this. So they didn't put any of that money into it. So that's why we didn't get anything else. Why do the Apaches not have air-to-air missiles? Because there's no need for it, quite frankly. So you kind of get into the idea of, and this is where I think DCS players don't really understand, or I don't want to say understand. You have a harder time appreciating what actual warfare looks like when it comes to this stuff because there's layers, right? All these things don't just happen in isolation, right? In DCS, you log into a server and you're like, oh, I'm going to fly the A-10 today, and you just go out flying. and then you get jumped by MiGs and you get shot down. Well, in real life, you wouldn't be doing that, right? You wouldn't just hop in and just go fly. You would go, and there would be other aircraft going and doing things. You would have air supremacy or air superiority and things like that. So this is kind of the same concept for the Apaches. You're not just going to just go out and just do stuff and be like, well, hopefully we don't get jumped by MiGs. You know, it's not how it works. So there's no reason to have that. I mean, could you find scenarios where it'll happen? Of course, but they're going to be so outlandish, or they're going to be so like, this is, you know, very unlikely to occur. It's, you know, juice worth the squeeze, essentially. And that's why you'll see other countries, they do have it, because they don't necessarily, they may not fight the same way we do, or they may not have the same capabilities. They may not have the ability to have air superiority or air supremacy the way that we do, and so they have to have that sort of way. But also, when we sell stuff, we kind of sell it like, this is the package, right? Like this is all the stuff it comes with. Like, so the British, I think they all have FCRs on their aircraft, because that's like how they bought it. They don't need every aircraft doesn't need an FCR. It doesn't work that way. So that's why. What letter grade would you give the DCS Apache? I mean, I still think it's great. I think it's great. I know people got hung up on the video I posted. I was just saying, hey, there's a problem here, but it's not a showstopper. I just didn't. I don't like it. You know, I kind of got into it with one of their SMEs who I know, and he's like, well, you know, it's okay. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. You know, and we kind of went back and forth. But I think fundamentally, and we came from that conversation, the problem is not necessarily the flight model. I think it has more to do with the friction. Because the tail rotor is generating thrust as it should be, and I think the problem is if there's not enough ground friction, well, then of course that thrust is going to cause something to happen. And so I think fundamentally that's probably what's happening. I can't tell that from my foxhole. You know, I don't see that. I'm just making guesses, and he's got a little bit more insight. So that's where that came from. And then I posted the other video saying don't stop flying, and people thought I was retracting. I was like, I don't understand where you got that from. I didn't say anything different. I'm just saying don't just stop flying it because this one tiny thing is off. Like, don't give up on it. That's silly. But there's a lot of like all or nothing people, and the thing that I still can't wrap my head around is, like, even with a channel this small, which it is small. I mean, we have 30,000 subscribers, which sounds like a lot of people. Fundamentally, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of people. But I still see, you know, if I say something, some people take it as this, you know, authority on this subject, and so. More A10 videos. I saw you, Hank. I saw you. Get the F-15, and then we'll do F-15 videos. I do miss the A10 though. We'll get back to it. I'm loving the F-15. I'm really having a good time with it. I didn't think that I would as much as I am, and I didn't think it would be as easy as it is. So, what do you think? The decision-making conversations were like at Kabul airport when H-64 is being used for crowd control. I guess I don't remember that. Were they like flying low and trying to like scare people away or whatever? I mean, I did that at Kiowa, so I mean, it's show of force type stuff. It happens. But and if there was something particular about that, I don't remember it. I just don't remember. Learned so much from your channel. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, F-15 missions at night are going to be sweet. I definitely want to get better at flying it at night. You know, the challenge with those things too, especially when you're creating content that isn't tutorials, which I hate making tutorials, but trying to just make missions and stuff, is the reality is, like, it goes back to what I was saying before. In order to have an interesting video, you got to have all this like stuff happen. Real life isn't necessarily like that. Like, you're going to take off in the F-15 and you're like, okay, we're going to go bomb this bridge, and there's going to be other planes that are going to clear the airspace in front of us, and then we're going to fly home. Like, that's the video, you know. And people don't necessarily want to see that. They want to see you dodging missiles and stuff. Well, if you're dodging missiles, something's already gone wrong. So, hello from Prague. Do you fly the Huey? I have. So yeah. There you go. Raptors in the chat. Professionals have debates, and especially Apache pilot. And I said this before too. Ask, because people always ask me what I think about it. I said, look, ask 5 Apache pilots about the flight model, and you'll get 10 different answers. You know, like, everyone's got a different thing. But to go back to the question of the Apache, I still think it's phenomenal. I think it's really good. I think it was really good when it came out. But they're going to tweak stuff because they're trying to dial stuff in. And what I have discovered with working behind the scenes with the Apache when it was coming out, with working behind the scenes with the F-15, with the Kiowa, even with the Gazelle a little bit, like, you're still messing with code, and you're gonna tweak something over here, and you have no idea that it's gonna affect things over here. It's just the reality, and I don't think people understand that challenge necessarily. So, it is what it is. My tail rotor is in the air, has more thrust than when on the ground. Yeah, I'd have to see it. I don't know. I wish the F-16 had the HUD FLIR. Oh, it doesn't. I don't spend much time in the F-16, so I don't know. Do you think there is a place for helicopters in the modern battlefield? Boy, we should have like hired you for this, because that's a great segue. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about in this. We were going to watch a video. The answer is yes, but you got to use it right, and that's the challenge. And I think that's a real challenge for like the U.S. military too, is because we're very used to the coin environment, and if you have to go back, it's very hard. So, and I saw that sort of challenge when I was an observer at the Joint Readiness Training Center. It was one of my last jobs. Just seeing guys try to get their mindset back into that type of fight. It's hard. It's not natural. What commercial routes do you fly most these days? It doesn't. There is no like set route in my my company. It's all over. Like, I just found out Thursday I'm leaving to go to Cincinnati, so I can fly Cincinnati to Tulsa and drop a plane off, and then go to Phoenix, and who knows what I'm gonna be doing in Phoenix, because we do cargo out of Phoenix, we do ice flights, we do all kinds of stuff. So who knows? Did the Apache do much work off the deck? Not with me, but I think when guys deployed after the Iran situation with the missiles, like right before or right during COVID breaking out, I want to say my old squadron who had transitioned to become Apaches, the 117 was flying off of ships, I think so. As someone who's Apache who flies the VR, do you have any tips for getting over the Oculus? I haven't really flown the Apache in VR, so I don't want to say, because in real life, what I used to do is squint. I would just do this when it got really bad, but I don't know how it is in VR, so I don't want to say like, well, you should do this, because I don't know what it looks like necessarily. I think it's the same, right? It just puts on one eye. But I don't know if that'll help you as much as it did in real life. But yeah, when things got bad for me, I would just do this. Especially if I was landing. Generally, if I was landing, I would just do that. So, 74 gear. Oh, I know who that is. That's like that. He's a 747 first officer, I think. Skinny guy. Yeah, I've seen his stuff. Flying to Cuba must be really odd. It was the first couple times. It was like, wow, we're in Cuba. And now it's like, I'm in Cuba. It's not a big deal. Crotch cam, when's it coming back? Well, yeah, I don't know. I haven't had a need for it. Haven't had a need to show my crotch to anyone lately. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. Little Max Afterburner crotch cam. I've never talked to that dude, but if I do, I'm gonna ask him, hey, do you know, like, that it's like a fisheye lens? Like, it's wild. Yeah, the UK definitely did a lot of carrier ops, I guess you could say, with helicopters. I would have loved to. When I graduated flight school as a Kiowa guy, I was coming to brag. Apparently, the unit before I showed up did ship ops. Like, it was a requirement. But right about that time is when the war on terror was really cranking up, and we were pushing people to Iraq all the time, and so if it wasn't relevant to that fight, you stopped doing it. So, what is your setup? I got a ton of stuff. I got VKB Gunfighter Ultimate, the metal one, as my joystick. I have a keyboard. I have the Virpil Mongoose CM3 throttle. I have a homemade, I say homemade, a prototype collective that a guy was making because he was going to start making them, and then the parts issue with China started like a year and a half ago, so he couldn't get the parts, so I think that's on hold. I've got Virpil pedals, the ACE ACE pedals, I think. And then I've got this sim cube setup with like the F-18 setup with the 3 screens and the little, I say little, it's huge, the Hornet thing, but I don't use that part because it's too big. I don't have anywhere to put it. And then I have the MPDs, the Apache MPDs from Total Controls that they sent me. I have too much stuff is the answer. I have too much stuff. Way too much. Bald guys, 70% chance of being evil is proven by the improvement. Are you talking about this Gear 74 guy? He's bald, isn't he? Or he's balding. Tricker flies into Houston all the time. I've never flown into Houston. But again, my company's weird because we do charters and stuff like that. So we fly wherever. I mean, I just flew into Toronto the other day, and then in the Chicago Midway, which is a really small runway, by the way, for a 747 or a 737. Southwest does it all the time. It's one of their bases, but phew, it would be stressful. It's tiny. For the counterinsurgency work, what was more useful? The Hellfire, 100% Hellfires. I had this, I don't want to say debate. When I was a warrant officer, and we showed up to Iraq, 2006, and I had to go do a presentation to the infantry brigade that we were supporting, and my sort of job was to convince them to let us shoot Hellfires because they were against us shooting Hellfires. And so I was like, look, I was showing that I had this like slideshow. I was showing them. I was like, look, this is not a 500-pound bomb. It's like a 100-pound missile, and that's including propellant and all the other stuff. So, this is not going to blow up a building necessarily, but it is going to hit what I want to hit versus a rocket that is a giant bottle rocket. The moment I shoot it, it's going to go where it's going to go, and I can't be, there's only so much responsibility I can take for that. So we started to shoot more Hellfires. My unit, when I was in Afghanistan, that's all we carried, Hellfire, and we'd carry rockets, but my point is we wouldn't carry rocket or rocket and 50 caliber because it was stupid. We got laughed at a lot by the other Kiowa units because they were, because that's just like the machismo of Kiowas is carry rockets and guns and be cowboys. I actually want to hit what I'm shooting at, and so we fired my tiny troop of 6 aircraft. We fired like 40 something Hellfires, which was a lot for a Kiowa unit. So, but we loved them. I remember one day my guys were having to pull Hellfires off of the Apaches because we were in such a big tick. Troops in contact situation. My guys came back and they ran out of Hellfires in a FARP. So dudes were running over the Apaches, like stealing the Hellfires off and putting them on my birds. We used to shoot a shit ton. It was good. Okay, got to jump. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you. I know the timing is weird for some people. What setup do you recommend for beginners? I used to, for the longest time, I ran that Thrustmaster T16 million. I don't know, whatever it is. T16,000 mic. It's a little throttle set. It's got a decent amount of buttons. That's what I would start with. That's what I had for a long time. Did you do APKWS and Kiowas? No, because it came out kind of after the Kiowa went away. We didn't get I never saw them until 2018, I think, when we deployed my last deployment. I was an Apache guy, and we used some. I didn't use them personally. We had some guys that did use them. They're awesome. They would have been great. They would have been a game changer for the entirety of the war, because we would have used rockets and we would have used the crap out of those things. But it is what it is. Have you ever thought about playing BMS? No, because it's another thing I got to learn, and I don't have time for that. It looks cool. I remember BMS or Falcon 4.0, is that what it was, when I was a young man? But yeah, I never got into it. You look for DCS World Dynamic Campaign. I don't play solo anymore, or if I do, it's just to learn something so I can make a video. But as far as like just having fun, I don't do it. I don't do it. That's, to me, so it goes back to that conversation of is it a game or is it a simulator? Other than just maybe flying around a little bit and just practicing something, I don't get any real enjoyment from just flying by myself. The enjoyment for me is like the coordination and like talking to a wingman or talking to another element that's doing something and like just working out the timing. Like that's the hard part in combat, at least for me, in my experience. And that's the part that I enjoy, like simulating. just flying around, you know, it gets old. Yep, the All-American. There you go. That's it. I got all kind of... I mean, you don't leave the Army or the military in general without a ton of stuff. I have so much stuff that I don't have wall space for, but I've got kind of some things all around here. I've got some other stuff in the house. I've got my helmet, one of my helmets back there. I've got another helmet down there, but yeah, all kinds of stuff. I hope ED brings a Vietnam map. I do too, but only if it's not a slideshow. That's my fear with the Vietnam map. Remember when the Marianas map came out? It was kind of like, you know, so. What is your opinion on Germany potentially buying Vipers to fill the attack? Yeah, I don't know anything about it. Couldn't tell you. I don't have an opinion because I don't know enough about it. What are they replacing? Like, what kind of aircraft are they replacing? Do you ever exercise with British Apaches? Nope, never worked with them. Never even laid eyes on one, to be honest with you. Can you put your Cav Stetson and spurs on? No, they're in the house. That's where I wear them when I'm naked. It's the only time you should wear them. Favorite patch you collected through the years? Actually my logo, right? So that Kiowa with the grin, that was our patch. It's actually just outside of camera, and my camera's too. Actually, it's on my helmet too. Let me see if I can. Oh gosh, I don't bend the way I used to. So the original design that I used for my logo, and I asked the guy who made it. I didn't just steal it because he was one of my pilots. But hopefully it'll autofocus. Maybe not. I can't really reach the camera. It's kind of far away. Trying to hide, but it's the logo I have. But you can see that there's Bam Bam from the Flintstones, and he's on the side, and he's holding a Hellfire like he's about to throw it. Because our call sign was Bam Bam. But that was a patch that we made while we were in Afghanistan. I always thought it was fun because it was kind of like a, you know, you see all these like fighter pilot patches and stuff, and they always have like, you know, Bugs Bunny or something. Like, I thought it was cool. I wasn't so much into like skulls and crossbones and all that kind of weird stuff, but it has its place. Oh. Don't fall. Do not fall. Anyway. Hardest part for infantry guys was seeing... Oh, yeah. We spent so much of our time just being traffic cop for guys and giving them a heads up to like, hey, turn. I mean, I've done that for convoys. Like, hey, you missed the turn. Go 1 block, turn left. Go 2 blocks, turn right. Get back on your route. Things like that. So, a joke about me riding in the... Yeah, I'm sure. I have no doubt. I knew what was going on in your head. That's why I fed it to you. Sometimes I know where you're going to go with things. Let's see. Do you think we need more realistic troop movement to improve the helo experience? Yeah, I mean, of course, that would make it more interesting. There's a lot of things we could add to DCS that would make it great. I try to avoid making like a wish list of like, oh, this is all the things I should add, because yeah, realistically, what I just want to be able to see troops in the back of the Huey. Can we just do that instead of modeling like this is what the engine looks like? Okay, I never look at that, but I 100% turn around when I'm in the Huey, and you know there could be dudes sitting there. Did they load? I don't know. So I love this Q&A. Well, thank you. I'm glad it's working. Yeah, NAP is very easy to read. Ever worked with the 22nd SAS or Special Boat Service? I worked with the Australian SAS. I never worked with the British. There was a British guy, because I guess they would expat to Australia and join the SAS there, because it was harder to stay in longer in the British military, I believe. Congrats on 30. Thank you very much. Yep. Hopefully we keep growing. I remember when I got 400 subs on this channel, and I thought it was like, well, that's it. That's as far as it'll go. I honestly thought that. I was like, this is more than I ever thought I'd get in the first place. So 30 is cool. I would like more, but it is what it is. You know, you can't take it too seriously. Let's see. What did you guys always show up late when we were getting hammered in Baghdad? Well, it wasn't me because I was never in Baghdad. Same reason you guys would never wait for us when we told you we couldn't be somewhere till 9 o'clock, so don't start your convoy. And then we'd show up at 9 o'clock and the convoy's already been gone for an hour and a half. It's like, well, you know what? Sorry, can't help you. You know, I'll catch up to you, but you've screwed up the timing. So, you need to do a live stream collab with Mover. I mean, we've done stuff in the past. Yeah, we talked. He was giving me crap for the F-15. He was like, why do they give you the F-15? You're a helicopter guy. He's always busting my balls. And then he was giving me crap because I did like a video about the air-to-air refuel, which I just did it just to show like some button pushes, really. And then he was like, oh, you're going too slow. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So, but anyway. Best, stupidest story you got? Oh, Jesus. How much time do you have? You have to be more specific. Just discovered your podcast. Love it. It's pity. Yeah, it got kind of hard. I'm not saying that I'll never go back to it. I just don't know what that looks like. I have to do it differently, and I don't know how. Podcasting is easy. The hard part is getting people, tracking people down, and that's the challenge that I had. And people bowing out at the last minute, or people, you know, stringing me on for a really long time. It just, you know, I was literally going from episode to episode. You know, I'm not like Jello over there where he's got, you know, an interview in December and he doesn't play it till the following November because he's just got so many people. Like, it was never like that for me. So, so that got very frustrating, to be quite frank. So, was the Kiowa ever equipped with shaft and flares? It was equipped with flares after I left. They started mounting them as I was leaving flying Kiowas, and I went to a teaching job. So I never played with them. The first time I ever played with anything with flares was the Apache, and it would just like dispense them automatically because it thought something was happening. And the first couple times, like, oh, and then after that, you just sort of ignore it, which is also kind of scary. So, would you try VR if possible? I mean, I have it. It's right here. I have a G2. I barely use it because it's hard. It's hard with content creation to make VR, good VR. But now that I got this new computer with the 4090 and all the bells and whistles, I may try to do some more DCS and VR and record it. So, tell Mover to get in the backseat. Oh, I know. All those guys just love Wizzos, don't they? It's weird. Is the green and gold a good method to become an Army pilot? I don't want to say it is because I don't know. I don't know anymore. You know, I've been out of it for a while, and even when I was still in, like, I didn't pay attention to stuff like that. You know, the best method to be an Army pilot is to go be a warrant officer. But, yeah. H64 versus K50 CAS. What do you think? H64, 1,000%. Not just because I'm biased, but, like, it's just a better platform. Just 100%. What was your longest flight in a jet? 5.5 hours. Vancouver to Raleigh, North Carolina. That was the longest. It was boring. Just so boring. Oh, longest flight in a chopper? A chopper. Well, I mean, you obviously you got to land to get gas. But the longest, I'll tell you, the longest time I sat in the cockpit and never, ever, ever got out, I think was 8 hours. So, how many different YouTube accounts do you have? Who are you talking to, me or somebody else? I only have two or three. I don't know. I've got some. Is it on? It probably turned itself on. I don't know. Never mess with it. One day it's just gonna overheat and explode. You did a good job not letting us notice that it was so hard getting people. Yeah. Well, there was a time. I think it's when I kind of noticed it because there was a comment. There's actually a comment on Apple, and it was like, it was basically saying like I sounded bored or something like that, which was strange because I actually liked doing the interviews with people. I enjoyed learning about stuff, There was a few where I was kind of like, all right, well, let's wrap this up. But generally speaking, I really enjoyed it. So I thought that strange, but I certainly felt it in myself. I was just tired of the grind. I was just tired of chasing people down. That got really old. So, what was the favorite aircraft you fly? That's a hard question to answer, because I like them all but for different reasons. So it's really hard to say what my favorite was. Flying a Kiowa was like flying a little sports car. It's so maneuverable. You know, it's not fast, but speed is relative. So when you're like really close to the trees, it feels pretty fast. I like the 737. I like landing it, and I like taking off. I hate everything in between. It's just boring. Just sit there. I like the last like 20 minutes of the flight, because like it's like a puzzle. You know, you're like trying to figure out like the best way to decelerate and descend and all that stuff. That's the hardest part of flying jets, coming from helicopters, is knowing when to slow down. Thank you, Mr. Pebbles, for yep. Hopefully I can do more. The challenge is I'm kind of at a point where I'm learning stuff too, and I don't know that I'll learn it fast enough to make videos. So I'm still learning air to air. I'm not a good air to air guy. What's the coolest unit call sign? I don't know. I mean, I'm partial just because I'm biased. I don't have any paraphernalia in here, but my first Kiowa troop, we were called Bootleg. And we had a skull. The skull and crossbones, like a pirate theme. It's so funny where we got this from. So we were 1st Battalion, 82nd Airborne, 1st Attack Battalion, and it was a Kiowa unit that was an attack unit. And this was an old construct. And then they were changing the whole Army aviation. So we were becoming 1st Squadron 17th Cavalry Regiment. And so, but the old 117 was transitioning to become 717 at a whole different base. So they were taking all their names. So we had to come up with brand new names. And so we were Bravo troop, so we had to find a B word, you know. So like I remember one night, like a bunch of us were literally sitting in the team room or whatever, just like going through the dictionary. And at the time, what was that movie? Was it Volleyball? Yeah, Volleyball. Or no, what the fuck? What was that movie called? Dodgeball, volleyball, dodgeball. With actors that I can't think of their names, but there was a guy named Steve the Pirate. There was a character, Steve the Pirate, and I don't know why, but we all laughed so much about Steve the Pirate. And so as somebody was going through like B words and they said bootleg, and somebody like because bootlegging started with like pirates or whatever, like they would hide flasks of stuff in their leather or their boots and stuff, and it's just this weird story. But we ended up deciding bootleg was cool, and we actually got flasks. I went downtown and found a place that would do engraving, and I bought flasks. And so we got the bootleg troop symbol. I wish I had a patch or something here, but it was like a pirate skull, and with a keg. The shape of the patch was actually a keg, and so we got them all engraved, and then we were like, well, we should number these. But nobody could figure out, like, well, how do we number it? Like, who's number 1, who's number 2? And I can't remember if it was me or somebody else said, well, there's 34 of us in the unit right now. Well, we'll all be number 34. So we all got a flask that said 34, and then we got more made that was 35, 36. And then as people showed up, they would get a flask. And they did that for years. I remember leaving, like, years and years and years later, I talked to somebody that went to that unit, and they were like, oh, yeah, they still do it. They got a book that keeps track of everything. So I thought that was really cool. So I don't know. I'm partial to that. I know I missed a lot of chats here. How do you like the unsprung cyclic? I stopped. I got rid of that. I can't fly jets like that, so I put the springs back in. It's easier for me to adapt flying helicopters with the spring than it is to fly jets without the spring. So yeah, dodgeball. I don't know why I kept saying volleyball. You're being dragged into a meeting. Well, that sounds terrible. I hope you enjoy your meeting. Basketball. I remember that movie or something like that. Will you ever do a full alpha strike in DCS with multiple ground? Yeah, no, that's the kind of stuff I like to do. It's just I gotta get the people, and the challenge of when you try to do large things like that is people don't show up sometimes, like not enough people. I hate sending out an aircraft single ship. Like, if you don't have a wingman, like, I'd rather you just not be there. So when somebody can't show up and it's like, oh great, I have one Hornet, like, it throws off my vibe. I just don't like it. Is the F-15E really going to give you more than the F-18? Not convinced. Well, maybe it will. It's not going to, but I think you shouldn't play based off of that, though. I think you should play based off what do you gravitate towards. Like, I never liked the Hornet as a kid, mainly because it got, in my mind as a child, it got rid of the Tomcat, which of course was cool because Top Gun. So I never liked the Hornet. It's very capable and it does a lot of cool stuff. I don't like flying it. So anyway, I'm thinking about going to Warrant Officer candidate school. Any tips, suggestions for the first steps? I mean, I guess you got to get like letters of recommendation. So look into that, and of course you got to pass the test. I guess they call it the SIFT now. It used to be called the AFAST, I think, which is your competency test, which is really weird. And people tell you can't study for it. You can study for it. Go find like a copy of it. I think I went to the library. This is how old how long ago this was. It was like 2002 when I took mine, and I went to the library on base, and I found like Idiot's Guide to the AFAST or something like that. But just getting an idea of what the questions look like, because there's some weird crap in there, and it's timed. So if it's the first time you're seeing this really weird question, you're going to spend minutes trying to decode what you're supposed to be doing, and that's wasted time. So at least just getting an introduction to what the questions look like is helpful. I don't know how the SIFT is now, because obviously I didn't take it. But that's something to think about. And then, of course, if you go to flight school, like, I'm sure this hasn't changed because it's the Army, work out, like, be in good shape, which is, they base so much of, like, your order of merit list based on how fast you run, stupid crap like that, which that's just very Army. It's just the way the Army is. You just have to deal with it. Yeah, 58 was easy to work on. Yep. Plus, I think the way that they did maintenance, like, not the phase maintenance, but they did the PPMs. I can't remember what that stands for, but preventative. I can't remember what it stands for, but they did like in little chunks versus like phase maintenance where they just tear the whole thing apart and do it all at once. So, are you looking forward to the Phantom and DCS? Absolutely. I mean, that is one of the aircraft that growing up as a kid was like, oh yeah, I would love to fly that. You took it a few months ago. Cool. Okay. I mean, it wasn't hard. It was just the questions were weird. So, appreciate your videos. Thank you. Yeah, the maneuvering ones. I just see a lot of guys do weird stuff with helicopters in all games. You see the videos and they're all just like kicking the tail out. It's like, you just don't fly like that. I don't know how to describe it. It's just, you just don't fly like that. Like, it's chancy. Like, that's kind of stuff you do in movies, but they've rehearsed it and they're not heavy and things like that. You like the earpiece? Yeah, I'm doing that because eventually maybe we'll watch this video and I need some audio, and I don't want it to come out of the speaker because then it'll go through the mic and it'll just be weird. Are you gonna do F-15A tutorials? Maybe. I don't know enough about it. I'm not good at it. I've been doing some stuff on stream. I streamed earlier on Twitch and we were doing some stuff. But I'm not good enough. Like, people nitpick me on like little stuff now. Can you imagine the nitpicking that I'm going to get when I'm doing something like air-to-air that I have very little understanding of? So, yeah, it's probably... I don't like to put myself in that situation. Do you like Riverdance? No, I love it. Thank you, Rob. Welcome. How you doing? Can you tell us some examples of weird questions? Honestly, I can't because I can't even remember back that far. When I say weird, I think just like... it'd be like, as I recall, there was like a couple where it's like there's some dots and then lines, and you had to be like, which line is longer? And it was like this sort of like fool your mind type questions. I don't know how to describe it. But like I said, I have no idea what the SIFT is like now. It could be completely different. All those questions you definitely want to get a head start on and take a look at before you never want to figure out what the question is what in the moment. Like you want to do that ahead of time. Oh, speaking of river dance, the only dance I like is with the river. What's up, Kelly? How's vacation going? Hopefully well. Did you ever notice commonalities between F-18s? Well, certainly the Apache and the F-18 have the beetle sound. So that's common. And then calling things MPDs, which in the Kiowa we call them MFDs. The MPD in the Kiowa was something completely different. It had like little, we call them chiclets, had little lights on there. But in your opinion, was the best seed aircraft, and why is it that? Yes, I would like seed fascinates me because I think it's like that really like hardcore, especially like Vietnam era. That was somebody, I need to find this picture. I know who's posted on Facebook. A guy that used to work for me, but he had this like diagram, like the old school like military manual diagram. It was like, you know, a child's drawing, but it showed like this seed plan, like how they did seed. And I was like, man, it's just so cool. Like I want to build a DCS mission off of this picture. So I think DCS needs major cooperation with other squads. So you're trying to make videos, long time plans, what for? So yeah, that's kind of one of my things. Like the whole content creators in DCS are very stovepiped. It's weird. Like you've got these little groups that they all talk, but they don't necessarily interact and they don't really necessarily do stuff together. So like Growling Sidewinder, we'll talk all the time. Who else? Tricker, you know. So, but there's like these little pockets, and then there's these groups that they all talk, and you know, like it's weird. Because I like, you know, nerd stuff. I mean, I've got models and stuff over here. Like I like to watch on YouTube like lots of modeling type stuff, and those guys, they all collaborate. They all do stuff together, you know. And it's like we don't really do that, or it's like pulling teeth to try to do it. It's obnoxious sometimes, but I'll wear the Spurs next time. I'll figure out a way to put them on Crocs. I'll have Crocs with Spurs. I need to get some combat Crocs. I got blue ones, and it's not combat. Do pilots request Boeing to fix the HOTAS configuration of the Apache? No. Like what? What do you mean? What's wrong with it? Wildwoods emissions are crazy. Yeah, absolutely. What is the easiest way to get into multiplayer? Yeah, just get with a small group. Don't log into like Growling Sidewinder's server. You're just gonna get destroyed, and then you're gonna get pissed off. Like find one of these little groups and get with them, and just do stuff. Like that's the most fun. It's when you know people. That's, to me, is when you have the most fun. Bams, thank you. The best DCS content has a strong narrative element. Yeah. I mean, Growling has cracked the code. I mean, he you know, say what you will about, I mean, I'll say it to him. I said it to him the other day when I talked to him. I hadn't talked to him in a while, and we were chatting about the F-15. I was like, man, you tired of doing the same damn thing over and over again? He's like, do people still watch it? No. You know, so and it's fun. I like watching his stuff, honestly. You know, sometimes I don't watch it all the time, but when I do, I'm like, oh, you know, he makes you feel like you're a part of it. And he really is good. Like, people give him crap all the time for, like, he sets it up. He doesn't. He actually knows what he's talking about. He's good. Kazma's favorite modeling watch is the foot modeling. I need to paint more. I was thinking about today. I need to do more stuff. Yeah, if you're interested in helicopters, BSD, there's a couple groups. I mean, there's groups for everything. Just go on Facebook. There's a ton of groups. Just go into a Discord. You know, there's so many ways. But yeah, don't just log in and start talking on SRS, because you're not gonna have a good time. I don't think. I wouldn't. So, Grim Reaper server. Yeah, I've heard that. They have a lot of people. You know, I don't know. People trash on them. I've learned a lot watching Grim Reaper videos. You know, but I've learned a lot watching. Yeah, same. I mean, I used. You know, it's funny. you know, I used to watch Growling. I used to watch Wolfpack, Ralphie. You know, all these dudes before I started my own channel. And then now, you know, I talk to these guys. It's cool. I mean, hell, I've had, you know, lunch with Wolfpack. You know, when I was in his town, we went out to eat. He's a good dude. So, yeah, that's cool. Did you ever play F-22? No. No, like I said before, I don't. I never got into simulators for aircraft that didn't like exist. I know the F-22 obviously exists, but like when they would come out with like, there was like when the F-22 and the F-23 were coming out, they had like a game for that, and I was like, yeah, I couldn't get into it. Yeah, long shot. I've done stuff. In fact, I was just talking to him the other day. We want to do something F-15 together, but timing. It's usually timing is usually what the challenge. Growling does stuff like late at night. You know, I got kids. I got to get up in the morning, and you know, and long shot lives like in Israel, I think, or something. So, who's the best date? You're right. I have eaten with all of them. I went out with Wolfpack. I had dinner with Tricker, and I had dinner with Gatto. Gatto bought my dinner, so Gatto wins. He picked me up at the hotel. He drove me to a very nice, fancy Brazilian steakhouse, or no, it wasn't a Brazilian steakhouse. It was Brazilian, I think, but it wasn't like a Brazilian steakhouse. And it was a nice meal. He was very gentle. Any combined arms with Arma 3? No, I don't. I don't play much of those types of games except for Hunt. I like Hunt. Jane's Longbow Gold. Yep, I had that. Jane's had a U.S. Air Force game. I remember that one, and it had like that's a good plane. The F-105, the Thud. Was it the 105? I'd like that. That would be cool. I'd like that. Did Gatto make breakfast? No, I had to go. I had to leave way early that morning. That sucked. We landed at the army base there, was at Fort Lewis, and when we took off from Louisiana, we left Louisiana and went up there, and we were supposed to not leave till the next day at like 3 p.m. So we were like all excited, like, oh, we're gonna see Seattle, we're gonna go out. And then when we landed, we all checked our schedule, and it had changed to like take off at like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. I was like, well, so we didn't have time to do anything. Yeah, that's right. Jane's had a USAF and IAF. That's right. I only had the USAF. So let's. I did want to cover this one thing. I've got it queued up. Let me see if I can't pull it up here. So this is this video of I guess something that happened recently in the Ukraine. I guess what it is, a Ukrainian counterattack or something. And so this kind of goes into the question of helicopters in the modern environment, tanks and all this stuff, which, you know, I always tell people, like, you know, people say, oh, helicopters are done for in the modern environment. Well, I've seen a lot of tanks get blown up, and I haven't heard anyone say tanks don't have a place. I've seen a lot of jets get shot down. I haven't heard anyone say jets can't do stuff. So I'm gonna pull this up, hopefully. Where is it at? All right, I'm still playing a setup here. I don't care how many times you rehearse things, it doesn't go well. All right, so hopefully the volume doesn't blow our eardrums out, but let's see, where are we at? So this is from Military Aviation History. It's called Leopard 2 versus KA-52 Alligator. So the KA-52, of course, is the twin, or the dual pilot, kind of like a KA-50. By all accounts, a very capable aircraft. So we'll just look at some of this and talk a little bit about it, I guess. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. Probably not.
Bradleys. They are approaching single file, most likely due to a minefield, as some footage suggests that the vehicles run into these mines as the action unfolds. Second, the Russian helicopters are in range of the column with Vickers anti-tank missiles. The time between the missile launch and impact is about 25 to 26 seconds here. This indicates that the helicopter was operating at close to the Vickers max range of 10 to 12 kilometers, given the missile's average travel time.
The audio didn't come through. It's showing that it's going through. Oh, you know what? Hang on.
Buildings or
let me try.
Between the helicopter and
okay.
the column.
Yeah, you guys are delayed.
So. The gunner's aim or obstruct the laser from hitting its target. It is important to note that it appears that Ukraine moved into this area at least twice, maybe even 3 times, with some units. One top-down picture comparison shows this clearly, as suddenly additional Bradleys appear on one side of the first column that was attacked. It is difficult to definitively state at this point whether what we see right now in this footage is part of one, perhaps the first attack, or of any subsequent movement. Now I'll add that from the footage I have seen, the leopards in the column, or the leopard in the column, appears to be mainly damaged to the rear left rather than the front.
Right, so it showed some video of the where the location's at, and I think here in a little bit he talks kind of analyzing where this is and what maybe was going on. Damage to tanks, and this is something valuable too, because you don't have to kill a tank, you just have to stop it, right, from doing what it's doing. It's kind of like people, right? You don't have to kill the other person, but if you wound them, you know, it also is a drain of resources. Hey, Upstate, did they attack during the day or night? So I don't think that we know, but there's some good conjecture, and I agree with it that this was at night. I don't think, at least at the time of this video, and I haven't seen anything, I haven't really looked either, but I'm pretty sure this was at night.
Without more detailed pictures, it is really unclear to say whether the Leo got knocked out by a Camo 52 or going on here.
So we'll look at his conclusions.
What are the main takeaways from all of this? Basically, a column of armor to be a target like this for a Russian helicopter, a series of things must have gone wrong. And this makes for a sobering analysis, one that is required if we want to draw lessons from it. First off, the route of approach and single file made the column an easy target to the Russian helicopter that could knock out one vehicle after the other. It is possible that this single file approach was chosen because of the mines. Second, the helicopter appears not to have been spotted before the attack. If they had been spotted, then nothing was done to counter them proactively through passive and active means before the action unfolds.
Right, so two things there, and it starts to paint a picture in my head of what's going on. The tanks are in line. I think it shows video here in a second, but the tanks are in line. So you have 3 different ways, basically, to maneuver. You have traveling Overwatch, and bounding Overwatch. So traveling is you're not expecting contact, right? So you're trying to get from point A to point B as fast as you can. The easiest way to do that is in a column, right? So it's easier to control, it's easier to manage versus having 30 vehicles online or with some weird formation. It's harder to control that. So by traveling in a line, that's helpful. There's some talk about minefields. I don't know if there was minefields or not. Preemptive identification of threat. So if it was daylight, you'd probably see these helicopters. At least after a while, you'd probably see them, especially with the K-50 because the sensor is on the nose. So, I mean, the thing has to climb up over the trees. Even at a couple kilometers, eventually you're going to see them. So that tells me it's at night. Let's see what else he has to say.
Now, I lean heavily on the side that the Ukrainians simply didn't account for Russian helicopters or didn't see them. Third, although we don't know, there appears to be no air defense in the area that can identify the threat proactively and could protect the column. Using air defense systems in this situation is a big topic I will pick up in a future video. Fourth, it appears that even after the first missiles hit, the Ukrainians don't really know what exactly is hitting them and from where. And finally, the critical human factor that is often forgotten. Shock and confusion play a major role in combat, and the measures taken by the Ukrainian crews seem to exacerbate the problem. There is at least one video showing the use of smoke, though it appears to be used somewhat late. And the thermal imaging of the helicopter can deal with this smoke at certain ranges. It's more difficult at long range, so at a range that the helicopter is operating right now. But the smoke would definitely also be problematic for the laser.
Yeah, so let's see. There's a lot to unpack there. Limited or no air defense. Again, a nighttime thing, you know, especially when you're talking about a man pad, you typically have to see what you're shooting at. So if it's at night, you're going to have a very hard time aiming your missile in the right direction. And what a lot of people don't understand about man pads, and one of the reasons I never put them in DCS, is because man pads just aren't always on. It's not like you just pull it out and you're just like, well, let me shoot this dude. You know, there's some setup. There's the coolant only lasts so long. The battery only lasts so long. So it's defensive, but it's not this foolproof thing that you're just gonna be able to protect yourself right away. He said something else, but then there was the shock and awe, and that 100%. Okay, I'm telling you from personal experience, when you get shot or something explodes next to you or whatever, it is a traumatic event, and your brain goes into the fight or flight and all this other stuff, but you do not see things. You don't recognize certain things that are happening, and it's interesting to watch things or listen to things on tape after something bad happens, because you will see things that you were like, I never saw that, you know. I remember it's a terrible but also kind of funny story. If you're in the military and you've been in a shooting situation, you have a very morbid sense of humor, so just take this with a grain of salt. But I remember watching some footage from these guys in my unit. They had done this big battle in Syria, and at one point in the tape, watching the tape, you can see this ISIS guy jump into a ditch. They had no idea he jumped into this ditch. They also had no idea that about 10 minutes later, they were shooting rockets at this target, and one of the rockets went right into the ditch where this guy had been. They had no idea, just accidentally fell in there. They didn't see it till on replay. So things like that happen. There's so much going on, and your brain can only register and recognize so much. So and I always used to get in this argument at the Joint Readiness Training Center, and I get in this argument with DCS players too, because they always say, why do the tanks just pull over when they get shot? Well, what else are you going to do? Like, if you're driving along and suddenly your tank the tank next to you explodes, there's only so much that you're going to be able to react to. There's only so much you're going to do. So there's a great scene in the movie Fury with Brad Pitt, and there's a scene where they're like 4 tanks traveling in a column because they're trying to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. It's the best all-around security. Didn't work out for them because the number 2 tank gets shot and the turret goes flying in the air. What was their response? Right? So they were like, whoa, you know, and they're freaking out, and they kind of figured out that it came from the side, but they pulled over and got some terrain between them, and they stopped. Because you got to figure out what you're going to do next. Not everyone has got the hive mind, and it's like, well, let's just drive off this direction. Like, it just doesn't work that way. So I can imagine in this situation, they're driving at night, they're in a column, they're driving in a column because they think they're in an area where they're probably not going to get hit. That's why you move in a traveling, and the U.S. military taught a lot of these guys. So that's what they've been taught to do, and helicopters went forward. I'm guessing, again, I'm pure conjecture at this point, but I'm guessing went forward to a point either through intel or just by chance. It probably wasn't by chance. It doesn't look like chance based on the terrain, and caught these dudes, and they weren't expecting it. And when tanks start exploding next to you, panic sets in, and you have no idea what that panic looks like until it happens. Again, telling you from personal experience. So I think that's what happened. So let's watch a little bit more here.
Also, as the action unfolds, most likely due to the minefield, the vehicles remain grouped up.
Of course, this is daylight, but this could be morning. I think it started at night.
To give you a more detailed perspective on this event,
You try to come up with as many vehicles as possible at the same time, over-aggressed. So you have as many as...
So this is a tank commander that they interviewed talking about how tanks would have operated. But one thing, and I'll kind of skip through it, like none of the video... Yeah, I think this is all aftermath, the daylight stuff, though. none of the helicopter video is not in FLIR. None of it is in day TV until like right here at the end. I think that's day.
That were famously losses in the beginning of.
So what I'm willing to bet is that it started at night, like early morning, right? Like before the sun comes up, because that's another great time to move. I could be totally wrong, but there's not a whole lot of. In fact, maybe it's here.
Based on the recent Ka-52 engagement tapes, the alligators are finding success through effective use of the Vickers missiles utilizing standoff and altitude. This tells me that the Ukrainians did not bring any effective radar air defense forward. If the Ka-52 can engage uncontested at altitudes of less than 1,000 to 3,000 feet and at ranges of 7 to 10 kilometers, man-pads will be ineffective. It is likely, without sensors or long-range optics, that the Ukrainian ground forces don't even know that they are being targeted by the alligator. Helicopter sound does not travel far and would not be heard beyond 2 kilometers, and the alligator would be a speck at best to the naked eye. The videos I have seen so far look to have taken place both during day and night. The video looks to have taken place during the night. The Ka-52 would have to engage at closer ranges based on their flyer capability, but maybe their flyer sight is better than I initially thought, or it has been upgraded to engage at max ranges now.
And this is
the flyer picture is pretty good compared to older videos I have seen. As for that video being shot at night, I don't 100% know for sure. Here's why I think it is. The contrast and the brightness of the vehicles indicates night. They are very bright against the terrain, indicating a significant difference in temperature.
And he doesn't zoom in
during
with
the day, ground is warmer along with the vegetation, making the contrast much less so during the day. The vehicles would not pop as much as they are here against the background. I've also seen Ka-52 videos from the recent Ukrainian offensive and in Syria during the day, and the operators would switch back and forth between flyer and a day camera.
Right, so that's why I say I think at least this started when it was dark. At least he didn't say FLIR. They always say FLIR. But exactly right. So with day TV, especially like in the Apache, and I think the K-50 is probably the same, your day camera's going to have a better zoom. It's going to have a better, like look at that picture. I don't know what that is. You know, I can't tell what that is. But what you would typically do during the day is find something like that and then switch to day TV camera and look at it and then switch back to FLIR. You know, you'd bounce between the two. And he's right. There's no real bouncing, at least in this portion. So my guess, just with the very limited intel, is that that's exactly what's happening. Is they started probably early morning when it's dark, and then it progressed, because there is some day footage. Absolutely there is. But a battle that this takes this long, I mean, it takes a while. Like, that's what people don't understand about combat. Is really slow for the most part. I've watched things happen, and it's like, it's just so slow. Like, vehicles do not just go racing around corners and doing all this stuff. Like, there's so much lag and latency in orders and communication that I can see that these dudes start getting, you know, their noses punched. And it's, hey, what are we supposed to do? Hey, I don't know what. And there's just chaos in the headquarters, because the reports that they get are always wrong. You know, they were probably told like 20, you know, tanks got hit with mines. They have no idea that it's missile. You know, there's just so much chaos. So I can see this just taking hours and hours. What I would love to know is how they got to that point. Meaning, like, how did this battle start? How did they know that the Ukrainian tanks and stuff were moving down this road? I don't see any indications of mines. I mean, they talked about it, but again, my sense, just looking at the way they're arrayed, is they're on a road. I mean, that's a road. Is they're moving from point A to point B. It's like I always just tell my students, like, who made roads? The Romans were big on roads. Why? For their armies, like, because it's the best way to move from point A to point B. It's measurable, it's fast, it allows you to get from places quickly, and that's how you maintain control. And so I argue armies stay on roads for as long as humanly possible, because tanks can drive just about anywhere. But what about the fuel truck that has to give it gas, right? And a tank needs gas all the time. I mean, when I was on M1s, we would need to get gas twice a day, whether we moved or not. Like, it just burns gas. So you can drive anywhere you want, but if the fuel truck can't get to you, it really doesn't matter. So armies want to stay on roads for as long as possible. They probably got spotted by a drone. Yeah, these days, probably. But there's more to it than that, because you have to posture your air crews properly, right? So it's not like you just ring a bell and everyone runs out to the helicopter. Like you have to have some prep. They have to know kind of roughly where to go and what they're expecting and things like that. So that's what tells me this is probably a little bit more coordinated than just kind of this lucky, like, oh, how lucky that we found all these Ukrainian tanks. I don't think that that's what happened. So anyway, we'll switch back to my smiling face. I don't know. It's interesting to see that. And I mean, after the amount of teeth kicking that the Ukrainians have done, that was probably not good for them. So I didn't watch everything. I don't know if it breaks down like how many vehicles they lost and things like that, but it was not cool. But, you know, that is a huge coordination piece, trying to not just identify something like a lucrative target like that, but then having the right pieces to play. And another thing that makes me think it's far forward, not just because of the way that they're maneuvering, but the fact that it seems to only be helicopters. Like, there's no other direct fire weapons. There's no tanks shooting at these tanks. There's no artillery that I saw in anything that I watched. So it's pure helicopters doing business. And that's a great example of helicopters being used properly. And I think the Russians have unfortunately not really used their helicopters very well so much in this conflict. There's just a lot of little things that, you know, and again, I don't like to throw stones at people, you know, oh, you weren't there. I got it, but I know what I know what I know, and I know what you're supposed to do in certain situations. You're not supposed to hover when dudes are within range to shoot anti-tank missiles at you. You're not supposed to overfly the same spot multiple times and then wonder why you get shot down. Like, these are just basic things that you learn very early on. And those were things that we saw a lot of coming out of early on in Ukraine. So, so I think reports of the end of the helicopter in modern combat is a little bit overblown. But I do think that it is a very challenging time. There is a lot of serious threats against helicopters, but there's also a lot of serious threats against tanks and jets and stuff like that. You know, it's a hard time. Like, I'm glad I'm not having to do it anymore. Just be honest with you. And especially like if they start getting like lasers, like legit weaponized lasers. Oh my God, it's just, I think it's going to dramatically change air warfare when you can have something that can not only track but engage that fast. You know, because now you can track anything. I mean, radar can pick up all kinds of stuff, but you still got to get a missile to it. When you can just beep and zap it, I don't know. I think things are going to look very different. I think fighters and bombers are going to go away. I think helicopters will probably go away. Like, I think it's just going to be a back to World War I type stuff in a weird sort of way. I don't know. It's just my guess. Hopefully not. Ultramarine, hello. Russians haven't done much. No, you're right, 100%. And it's, I shouldn't laugh about any of this, but a lot of us who spent many years like trying to prepare to fight that war, and then we see them kind of just go out there and flop around, and we're like, what is going on? Like, what? I thought this would be harder. But I think the problem with the Russians is they started to believe their own hype. That's kind of what I think. They got away with telling people how good they were for so long, and they probably started to believe it, and they probably thought Ukraine believed it, and Ukraine did not believe it at all. So information is always a great weapon. I mean, it's massive, but they do appear to be a paper tiger. It does seem that way. I mean, they got a lot of stuff, though. That's the one good thing for the Russians. They got a lot of stuff, but they're having some serious issues, and it's terrifying to watch. Any thoughts on Army's future vertical lift? I think we did this on my podcast. I had a couple smarter guys than me talk on there about stuff. I don't like tilt rotor. I just think it's weird, but that's just me. You know, I'm just becoming an old man where it's like, well, it looks different than what I like, and I don't like it. You know, I don't have anything to base it off of. Just tilt rotor seems weird to me, but it kind of goes into the whole changing of the way conflict is. You know, helicopters operating really close to the front lines, like literally living and breathing close to the front lines. Those days are over. You know, I used to say that at the Joint Readiness Training Center. You know, I was there when Iran did the whole missile strike on Al-Assad, and at the same time we had, I think it was the 101st, had like air assaulted or something into this area, and they got stuck in the mud for days. And I was just like, imagine if we were fighting Iran. Like, they would just bomb this. You don't even have to nuke it. Like, just bomb it. Like, this whole concept of space and time and distance is very different now. So with helicopters, you can't hang out 30 miles from the front. You got to be like way the hell out there. Raptor, 100%. Tilt rotors are the devil, but unfortunately, I think they're a necessary evil. You know what I mean? That's just the reality. But that's just from my uneducated view. I think they're ugly. That's really what it boils down to. They're ugly, and I feel like mechanically there's more of a challenge. But you know, I don't know. Raptor, if you have anything to chime in too on the video, I'm interested to hear your thoughts because you're a smart guy. But then I don't know, like, do I prefer tilt rotors over the coaxial things? That just seems confusing to me too. I like stuff to just look like what I'm used to. I'll just leave it at that. But do you visit air shows? I haven't been to an air show in a really long time. Like since I was a kid probably. I did a flyover for a football game one time, like a couple years ago, but that's the closest to an air show I've done ever in a long time. But I've never been to one as like a crew member or something like that. I've been to them as kids. So, do I think tilt rotors are less safe in a crash scenario? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. You know. JD, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. Have fun at work. This is my work. My main reason against tilt rotors is because they take up so much space. Yeah, I mean, I know they tried to say like the whatever they call it. I don't know the names anymore. Like, didn't take up as much space as a Blackhawk. I don't know. I mean, they showed the math, but I don't know if I believe it. Sun and Fun. Yeah, I grew up near there, right? I think they have that. That's in Florida, right? I grew up in Tampa, so I think it was like an hour away or something like that. I never went to one, though. The UH-60 has killed more people. Yeah, but there's also a lot more of them, right? That's kind of like saying, well, there's more gun violence in America than there is in Portugal. You know, it's like, well, okay, but per capita is there? Like, I mean, you gotta break that down. So, but anyway, yeah, exactly. And it's been around a lot longer too. Tilt rotors are the devil t-shirt merch. That's a, hold on. Let me write that down. It's actually a good idea. I'm always looking for some merch ideas. I don't push merch enough. I need to. So I can stop having a real job. I could do this. Oh, is it really huge? Yeah. I haven't been to an air show, like I said, probably high school. I think it's the last time I went to one. Have I ever had an auto rotation emergency? No, not at all. I had, well, I got shot. That was an emergency, but the aircraft was okay. And then I lost hydraulics in the Kiowa. I'm going to turn, hopefully this isn't too loud. I'm going to turn on my air conditioner because it's starting to get a little bit warm in here. I lost hydraulics in the Kiowa a couple times, which is not a huge deal. It's kind of like losing your power steering. But I had to land. It was nighttime, and I'd never done hydraulics off landings at night and under goggles. And I had to land on a UAV strip with, like, it had like arrestor cables. So that was interesting because I had to know where the cables were and like shoot past them. So you don't want to catch the cables. Late getting here. Does a 64 actually list to the left? I mean, all helicopters, at least all that I've flown, have a little bit of tilt. It's been so long since I've flown Apache that I don't get into the nitnoids because I just don't remember it. I think sometimes we just like ignore or just get used to something. Raptor could say he's flown them more recently than I have. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it had some tilt. Just the rigging and the way things with with the tail rotor. There's all kinds of aerodynamic science behind it. If the AC's loud, let me know. I won't leave it on long, but I'm dying here. I'm in the man shed. I'm gonna miss it when I move. I'm gonna have to build one. So it's second to Oshkosh. No shit. Okay. I've never been to Oshkosh either. Isn't Oshkosh though? Isn't that just like a bunch of civilian planes? Like I have zero interest in seeing like, oh, this is the Cessna, blah blah blah. You know, I don't know. All planes look the same to me unless they're military. Like when I'm at the airport and I'm like, oh, what is that? Oh, it's a 737. Oh, really? I fly those. Like I can't recognize them. So cables and skids, bad day worse. Yeah, that would be. Well, it was that or land on the dirt strip. Cause I was in Tarancount and we had a dirt runway that C-17s could land on. That was cool to watch. And then right next to it, you had the UAV strip. So we'd always had this sort of like philosophical discussion of what are you going to do, and I got to test it. Do we land on the strip, the runway with the dirt, and run the risk of grinding the skids into it, or do you land on a UAV strip? The runway was at least lit. The UAV strip was not lit. It was just a black hole, and like I said, it had those arrestor cables, which I had just driven past it a couple of days prior, so I kind of had in my head, I knew where they were, so I just shot my approach past where I thought it was. Yeah, it was interesting night. Landing at Oshkosh. Yeah, I heard a lot of violations happen at Oshkosh. There's a lot of people flying there and screwed up. Was there military stuff though at Sun and Fun? It's not like the Blue Angels and stuff like that, is it? 1/60th often shows up. Of course they do. Somebody asked me earlier, I didn't answer it. What would I fly in 1/60th? Nothing. No interest. I hate Tarancount. I love Tarancount. We had such good food there. So much better. Sun and Fun. Where in that's in Florida though, right? Sun and Fun is in it's south of Tampa, isn't it? A lot of gunnery at Tarancount. Yeah, we had that. There was a nice little range there. You could go up there and shoot your rifle over the wall at stuff. Hell, we used to go there with our pistol. We could see how far we could shoot with our pistol. We'd put it at like a 45-degree angle in the air and just shoot our pistol, and then just wait and wait and wait and see where the rounds land. And it was impressive. That's where you get into the conversation of max effective range versus max range, because max range is much further than max effective range. We could throw those bullets way out there, a couple hundred meters with the pistol. Duke City G, hello. F-35. Okay, cool. They probably came down from Pensacola. I saw them flying around when I was, one of the last schools I went to in the Army was there at Hurlburt Field, right down the street from where the F-35 training was. Yeah, those are cool looking. They make a lot of weird noise. I think it was the F-22s I saw at Nellis. They sound like TIE fighters. I don't know, there's just some weird sound to them. They just... So. I did watch one take off, and I don't normally get jealous of fighter pilots, but I remember watching an F-35. I was driving past the runway, and the dude happened to be taking off, and I was just like, that would be cool. Like, okay, I'm leaving, bye, and you're just gone. You know, you're just 1,000 feet within a few seconds. That's cool. But other than that, it's boring. Autopilot. Oh yeah, MacDill Air Force Base. That's the air shows I went to. I grew up 30 minutes from MacDill. Yeah, I went to those quite a few times. I worked at them. Like I said earlier in the stream, when I was in the Civil Air Patrol, we worked those air shows. I did guard duty or whatever. I don't know what I was supposed to be doing as a 13-year-old, but I was at the F-15 Strike Eagle. I did the A-7 Corsair and the F-111. Those are the three that I remember, like, working the rope line, or I don't know what I don't know what I was supposed to do. Take pictures for people. I don't know. Heard of the Cessna Caravan Combats? No, I don't think so. Yeah, the F-22's got a weird sound to it. It's cool though, but yeah, it sounded like a I don't know, like I said, like a TIE fighter or something. It's wild. Had a B-1 bomber fly over us at MacDill too for the air show. Been sporadic at MacDill. Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, just the sheer volume of just aircraft, the money. I can't even imagine how much in fuel. I think the Army needs to get in on that, though. I think the Army should be going to every air show they can, and the Army's not very good at like advertising aviation. I don't know why. Well, I have my theories, but I don't want to say. Proposed Navy H-64? I don't believe that. I mean, I think the B model, I think that was the original concept. There was gonna be like a H-64B, but yeah, I don't think that's a thing. If it is, I've never heard of it. Legacy Hornet Howl, I've never heard that. I do remember an F-14 turning with the burners on, doing a little turn, and I mean, your chest just like, it was wild. Cadet Casmo was authorized to use harshly. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. VR or eye tracker? I use Track IR. I've used Track IR for 1,000 years at this point. Oh. What else? What else? We should be wrapping up soon. I should probably play Hunt at some point. So, how many hours do you have in Apache? Actual like flight hours, probably like, I don't know, 300. Not a lot. Most of my time was Kiowa. I flew like 2,000 hours into Kiowa, and then the Army got rid of them, and then it's like musical chairs, and everyone's just like trying to find a chair, and that's the chair I landed in, which I was super happy because when I went through flight school, I wanted to fly Apaches, but I also wanted to fly Kiowas, and so I could have picked either one, because I was high enough in the OML, but I picked Kiowas, and I wasn't sad about it. I mean, I was happy that I got what I wanted, but it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. I think most pilots want to fly something else, if for no other reason to say that they did. And so when the Army got rid of the Kiowa, like, it was sad, but it gave me an opportunity to do something else. So so I was happy for that. But yeah, I by no means was an expert at it. I made pilot in command and all that jazz, but H-64E versus the Zulu Cobra. I don't know enough about the Zulu Cobra to have an opinion. Somebody was trying to tell me that they use like a Xbox controller in there, but I think they were being lied to. Does the Kiowa feel similar to the Gazelle and DCS? I don't want to say because I haven't flown it in a while and they're still messing with it, so I don't want to say. Highest altitude you hit in probably like 9,000. So, am I tired? I'm always tired. I got 4 kids, man. I'm always tired. It's a perpetual state of being tired. But I think that's one of the hardest parts about going to fixed wing from helicopters as altitude, because you're just so like, as a helicopter guy, generally speaking, going to a couple thousand feet and you're like, oh, we're really high. And then when you go to fixed wing world, like, you want to get higher because it's better, it's more efficient. But when I was getting my private, I'd be flying around at like 2,000 feet, and I was like, I should really be at like 6,000 or 7,000, but it's so high up there, it's scary. And now I go to like 33, 35. You have 3, yeah, you can really, you've left man on man, you're in zone defense. So yeah, 100%. See Apache proposal. Yeah, but I think that's really old though. I don't think that's new. That was like 1,000 years ago type stuff. All right, Joker. We'll see you. Thanks for stopping by and supporting. Yeah, I should. Well, I should have. Next time I'll drink. How about that? We'll make it more interesting next time. Any plans doing more with Mover? Yeah, I mean, again, it's always timing, and especially now because I think he's going back to work with the airlines. So his schedule is going to be even funkier than it was. But learning the recon security mission set after OH 50 days was quite fascinating. I prefer the attack mission, but the recon, yeah. And people always said, "Oh, the Apache can't do the stuff that we did in the Kiowa." No, in some regards it can't, but in other regards it can. I flew with a lot of Kiowa converts. The unit, the troop that I was on the ATP with, the training, what is it called? Aircrew training plan. It was basically the unit that I flew with that managed my time and stuff. Was a lot of Kiowa guys. And so we flew the Apache in weird ways, and some of the purebred Apache guys are like, "Oh, this is different," you know. It can do it. It's just what the mission requires and what the rules allow too. They'd be like, "Oh, you can't go this low." Like, well, I did anyway. Sorry. But I like the gun, being able to turn with your head. That if I could have had that in a Kiowa, even if it was like a 9mm, I don't care. Like just the ability to like look at stuff and shoot was super cool. Very helpful, especially in the scout role, because you get close to things. But we could also stick our rifle out the door, so that worked. Let's see. Did you have to hypoxia training as a helicopter pilot? I mean, you classroom type stuff, but we didn't have to go into like the compression chamber or all that jazz. I've never had to do that. So let's see. Has Razbam raised their? I would say so. I wasn't there for the Harrier release, so I don't remember what it was like. But I think they did a really good job with the F-15. Yeah, definitely not optimized for it, but definitely capable. You know, Kiowa guys like to talk a big game about how they can see stuff and they, you know, oh, I can see everything. I could see just perfectly fine from the Apache. I might have to turn a little bit more, but I could see, you know. So I don't know. There's a lot of bravado and machismo that goes into all this stuff. I never subscribe to that. Just do your job. I don't care what they give you to fly. You could probably figure it out. Did your CPG ever get to employ Hellfires in real combat? Yes. So I mean, we don't have like dedicated CPG. So like if Raptor and I were flying together, you know, if we were both PCs. All right. I know what I did. I didn't realize it would do that, but that's I put my Bluetooth away So it disconnected from the Bluetooth. And then for whatever reason that froze up the the soundboard. So I don't know why it did that. Yeah. Yeah, it just shut off the mic for whatever reason. Even though it's computer stuff. I don't know. Yeah, that's the universal sign for wrap it up. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully I remember how I started this and we can do it again. I don't know. Was this valuable? Was it fun? I mean, I had fun, but you know, I mean, there's plenty of people engaged. I'm glad the chat thing worked, because if people watch this in the back, like watch this back, I wanted them to be able to see like the chat questions. So that worked. I'm happy for that. Yeah, I know exactly when you lost it. I don't remember what I was saying, but I do remember. Oh, if Raptor and I were flying, yeah. What I was saying is everyone is crewed, everyone is a rated aviator. So like Raptor and I were both qualified, right? So if we were both a pilot in command and we were flying the aircraft together, he would. You know, if he was the pilot in command of that flight, he would decide ultimately who sat in what seat. But like, for instance, if he flew yesterday as the backseater, then probably today I would fly as the backseater. You know, just whatever. I used to decide just based on like who I was with and what the mission was. Like, so if it was like really going to be chaotic, I might sit like in the front seat or in the left seat as the Kiowa, because I could handle all the radios and stuff, and then just like, hey, just cart me around and let me talk on the radio. If I knew it wasn't gonna be too chaotic, then I would definitely put like a younger guy, newer guy in those seats, because they needed to learn it, and I could manage it from the other seat if I had to. Like, it's not a problem for me to just talk on multiple radios while flying, because generally flying is pretty easy. But I'd like to be able to sit back, let them get the experience, and also I can kind of whisper in their ear, like, hey, tell him this, you know. But the point is, there's no such thing as like a CPG and a pilot. Like you're just an aviator, and then you just fill in, you know, whatever seat. So I don't know how they do it, like K50 World or K52. I don't know if those guys are both rated or how that works. That'd be interesting to know. I'd love to talk to a K52 pilot. I would love to know more about that aircraft, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Anyway, I'm having absolute fun with Mudhen, and I think everyone else will too. Would two pilots be kept together as a flight crew, or were they switched out regularly based on it? It kind of depends, but typically when you're deployed, just based on the rhythm and crew rest, you're probably stuck with the same dude, or you're stuck in the same group. So like when I was in Iraq the first time, there were like 4 of us on a team, and so like we would all just swap around, you know, like I flew with Bill today and now I'm gonna fly with John tomorrow and stuff like that. So but as far as like you'll always see like combat crews, like, oh, these guys are combat crew. Okay, that, you know, that's like a slide. That's just like to make a red dot turn green on a slide somewhere. It's very rare, at least in my experience, it's very rare to see that actually hold true. Like, this is my combat crew and I'm always with this guy. Or like people's names stenciled on the plane, like, oh, it's my plane. No, it isn't. Like that's just not real. That's just silly. Maybe there's units where they've done that like to an extent, but I don't believe it, because maintenance alone would screw that up. Like, oh, so your aircraft's broke, so you never fly. You know, it's silly. I always hated that. We would put names. I remember one place we did put names on the aircraft, but it was just like a nostalgia type thing. It had nothing to do with like that was his airplane. I don't know. It's just weird. I imagine the Zulu guys are 100%. In fact, I know they are. They're 100%. They're rated front and back seat guys. So 100%. Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. We've been going on for almost 2 hours, and again, I do appreciate you guys hanging out and going through all the technical difficulties. I know we had some in the beginning. I couldn't get the damn thing to start, but I think I know what I did. So next time, it does sound like people enjoyed it a little bit. So we'll do it again sometime. I'll try to find some other topics to talk about, because I'm up here tap dancing. And then, of course, thank you for with the audio. I know what I did, so I won't do it again. Daz and Blast. Do you have a channel? I don't know your Why is my chat like weird? Anyway. Jim Morrison just got here. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, I can only tap dance for so long. I've done my best. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because I got to go do other things, I'm sure. My wife's probably mad at me. And then head out on Thursday for work for like 5 or 6 days. So I don't know when I'll do more content for the F-15. I got to do the thing I did with Natso. I'll cut that up and do some stuff. But other than that, yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Hopefully the videos are helpful. And I'm going to wrap this up. So thanks, everybody. Raptor, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by and being the adult in the room. And we'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy.